What is up, football fans? This is Ismail Monero on my channel. Usually I cover the Bills, but I do my Built in Buffalo thing now with the Built in Buffalo team. So that's where I'm gonna keep most of my Bills content. I will touch the Bills here, every now and then. And in a series like this, I will go there, you know. But I want to sum up, some other teams off season. Probably all the teams, off seasons. And I'll probably go in order, in alphabetical order. So the first one's going to be the Arizona Cardinals and what they've done this offseason, right? And one of the things I'll look at is new players they brought in. All right? Okay, cool. So the Cardinals brought in AJ Green at receiver, JJ Watt. They brought in Justin Pugh. They brought him back. They brought in Ronnie Hudson from the Raiders. They brought back Jordan Hicks at linebacker. They lost Kenyon Drake to the Raiders. They brought in Robert Alford. They brought him back again. They lost Devondre Campbell, who's currently a free agent. They brought in Sean Williams, safety from the Bengals. They lost Jarrus Sweezy, who's a guard. He was a backup. They brought back Marcus Golden. They lost Corey Peters. They brought in Matt Prater, kicker from the Lions. He's a pretty good kicker, actually. They lost Hassan Reddick to the Panthers. They lost Zane Gonzalez. I don't say they lost him, but they replaced him with Prater. They brought in Brian Winters from my Bills. He's a bum, so he'll probably be a backup there. They brought in Colt McCoy. Ooh, backup quarterback. Okay. They retained Andy Lee. They lost Domata Pecco. They retained Max Garcia, Kelvin Beachum, and Chris Banjo. They lost Dre Kirkpatrick, Mike Nugent, Jonathan Joseph, Brett Hundley, Josh Morrow, Angelo Blackson, interior defensive lineman, went to the Bears. Seth DeVal is a free agent still. DJ Foster is still a free agent. Charles Washington came back to the Cardinals this year. Let's keep going down the list. Isaiah Irving, they lost to free agency. He's still out there. Mason Cole, and a lot of these other guys don't really matter. They're retainees or people who went elsewhere, like Dan Arnold went to the Panthers, and Trent Sherfield went to the Niners, right? So the Cardinals really kind of addressed a lot of their needs. They needed defensive linemen to help out. They brought in Jordan Phillips from Buffalo last year, and they brought in J.J. Watt, which was a big thing. They lost Larry Fitzgerald. They brought in A.J. Green, who's always hurt. So it makes sense that what they did in the draft, in losing corners, receivers, defensive linemen. So their first pick was a linebacker, Zaven Collins from Tulsa. Now, Zaven Collins was a pretty, well-respected and well-sought-after linebacker in the draft. And he's probably the perfect complement, to Isaiah Wilson, who they drafted last year. And he's the big linebacker safety hybrid guy who ran like a 4.38, 4.39 at like 225, 230 pounds. He's a big boy. And they played him at safety. I think that he's probably going to be more of a weak side linebacker next to Zaven Collins. I think that's more his fit. And they need to evolve that defense to fit him in that spot more. Right? So that was the first round pick at number 16. So in the second round, at 17, that pick in the number 49, they brought in wide receiver Rondale Moore from Purdue, who was one of the better receivers in the draft. I'm surprised he slipped as far as he did, but sometimes guys slip. He's only 5'7", but he is a speedster. 5'7", 181, and the man is just a well-rounded prospect. People said that Devontae Smith was too small. Well, if he's too small, then this guy is too. But I don't think that's how that works, man. Receivers can be small, right? They can just be small. That's how that works. Now, in the third round, they also lost Patrick Peterson. So what they do, they bring in Marco Wilson, cornerback from Florida. Now, Marco Wilson, he is a decent corner, right? I had him going in the fourth, but he snuck into the third round with them. And it may just be a scheme fit type of thing. Maybe they had him high on their draft board. I'm not sure. They brought in J.J. Watt, but, for extra insurance in the fourth round, Marco Wilson went in the fourth round. Now that I'm looking. So he was a 4th-round pick. So I was right. Fourth to 5th. He was 31 in that round. Victor, I hope I don't butcher this, Dimukije from Duke, edge rusher, in the 6th round. So they didn't have a 3rd or a 5th-round pick this year. Interesting. And their 4th and 6th round picks, the first 6th-round pick that is, were traded for. One from Baltimore, both of them from Baltimore, looks like, right? So Victor Dimukuje, edge rusher. That's clearly depth. Because you picked up J.J. Watt. They picked up another cornerback from the University of Central Florida, in Tay Gowan, and they picked up, I don't know what an SAF is, but James Wiggins from Cincinnati. I don't know anything about that guy, so I don't have anything to say. And then Michael Manet from Penn State in the 7th round at center. Probably a depth piece. That's where you get your depth as your later rounds. So overall, I don't think too highly of this draft, but I don't think too low of it either, being that they didn't have a whole lot of picks. But in the first 2 rounds, they definitely addressed some key needs. A defensive center fielder, since they lost Hassan Reddick, and then Rondale Moore at wide receiver, since they lost Larry Fitzgerald. They brought in A.J. Green, who's a big body like Larry Fitzgerald, but he's always injured. He's always injured. So we'll see if he can stay healthy in the desert. But personally, I think that their draft was solid, and their free agent pickups were pretty solid too. So I expect the Cardinals to take a small step forward. Maybe they go just above 500 this year. That division is really tough with the Rams. They just got Stafford, and then the Niners, having a healthy slate. And then you look at the Seahawks, and they're still the Seahawks. So the Cardinals had a pretty decent draft. If they were in another division, I think more high of them. But I still think they may end up last in that division. And that's a tough one because they're not a bad team. That might be one of the toughest divisions in football. The Cardinals are on the move up, but their biggest question is coaching, let's be honest. Their head coach, his name is slipping my head right now. I'm sure I can look it up. I just look it up. He came from, I think, Texas Tech, where he had a losing record as a head coach. And honestly, I'm not really that impressed with, how he's handled the Cardinals. But I'm also not disappointed, because the Cardinals is a team that has been kind of the basement of the NFL with the Lions, back when the Bills were, now with the Jets. There were teams that are just known to be at the bottom, and the Cardinals are there, and they're still kind of there. Cliff Kingsbury, that's his name. I wasn't really impressed when they signed him from the college ranks, but that's not my business. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here just to kind of break down that draft and the free agency overall. And I think they did a decent haul from both free agency and the draft. Could have been better, absolutely could have been. But you know what? It's a COVID season. You don't have that much film. They could have hit on everything. I don't want to say anything negative about any of the players that they picked up in the draft. I'm trying to keep the draft stuff more positive, unless they reached for somebody. Like, no one saw this guy going in the first round. But everybody they picked seemed to fit in the spots they should have been picked. The values seemed to be fine. And, they just didn't have a lot of assets to go and get players. Once they got J.J. Watt and A.J. Green, that was kind of it. But overall, I think the Cardinals had a decent offseason. I'd give it a solid B, maybe a B-. But it wasn't bad. So, Arizona Cardinals, we'll see what you can do with what you got now. But it's going to be a tough road. It's going to be a very tough road. I really do hope that they're able to, keep putting weapons around Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray with weapons can be dynamic. He can throw the ball. He can run. He's a dynamic player, but they need to keep running with weapons, and they need to make sure they protect him. He does get sacked quite a bit. Either that or he's running for his life quite a bit. And they brought him some offensive linemen, so we'll see what they do. Outside of that, I'm trying to keep these things short, sweet, to the point. So the Cardinals, decent offseason, good push, go Bills as always. But I don't mind what the Cardinals did for themselves if I'm a Cardinals fan. I think they could have done more, but I don't mind it. So